share my experience.
Thank you so much, Olumide, and welcome. Yeah, so following you the last few days, you were known as Mr. Environment, and we also get back to that. We just learn on the tagline, that name of Mr. Environment, and how to go about everything about it. So to the panelists, welcome to this forum. This is where we have the top 100 brilliant leaders in Africa in regards to environment conservation matters. So here we have people from different countries, and basically today we'll be learning about resource mobilization. So to start it off, I'll go to Lydia, and with your wealth of knowledge in resource mobilization, spanning from both private and non-profit sector, what would a potential funder or a partner look for, particularly in a young grassroots organization, that would make them say yes to a partnership or project grant proposal? For instance, one of the participants here who runs a grassroots organization makes an application for grant. What would that funder look into?
Hey, thanks. I know there's some background noise. I don't know if we can mute that. We need to move quickly and do this. But thanks for your question, Callisto. I know there's, we have organizations that are newly developing and some that have been in place for a long time. But I want to divide my answer in two ways. So first of all, before it's about the partner, it's about you, right? So be very clear, it's about defining your space. So the first bit is I'm going to talk about is really about defining your space. So what is the problem you're solving, or what is the opportunity you've identified? Those are the two reasons why you have set up your organization. What is a problem you've identified that you want to solve? Or what is an opportunity that you've identified that you want to crowd people in? So it's important first, it's about you before it's about others. So it's important you define that. And for me, there's a clear step process. In my career, both in the private sector and brand management, but also in international development, when it's talking about partnerships or collaborations, and strategic development, program development, it's first of all defining what it is you're trying to solve. What are your goals you're trying to reach? So it's about goals and it's about values. And I think it's important to first of all really be able to define that first, because that helps to map out then what you will need and who you will need to take you on that journey. So I really think it's important to define the two. And I'm sure most of the people on this call have been through or are going through the first stage, but it's important that we do that and we develop it. If you stand for nothing, you fall for everything. But first of all, be very clear what it is that you're solving and the opportunity, the problem you're solving or the opportunity you've identified. So being very clear about your brand goals and values. What I always like to say is make sure you do one or two things really well. Focus on that, doing one or two things very, very, very well. If you're trying to do 4, 5, 3, 6 things, you're not necessarily being very focused. And so even attracting partners, you're not able to do that competently. So focus on doing one or two things very, very well against the problem you're solving or the opportunity you've identified. The other key thing to this is also evidence-based reporting on the social impact or the impact you're achieving. Making it known that you're delivering what you set out to do in terms of reports, in terms of pictures, in terms of, what you're putting out there. I think that's very important. The other thing is also networking and expanding within, expanding your network within your own sphere and also beyond that. So in terms of engagement platforms, talking about what you do, talking about what you intend to do. I think that's important. Ensuring, first of all, you understand what are the platforms you need to be at to be able to even talk about these platforms. And these are platforms that are focused in your area of competence. I think that's important at local level, a national level, at global level, at regional level, whatever that may be. I think it's important to focus on that. The other thing, of course, and that's where I think there's a huge opportunity for this demographic, is communication and talking about your work. There's a lot about social media, and those platforms that are available. So I think that's important, and that's really, really helpful in terms of storytelling and the evidence and the testimonials and having reliable, stories of impact. And you're able to get it out there freely and communicate that. Some of it may look at content, but content creation, but do it in the areas of competence that you're building and you're communicating about that. And then, of course, now we go into collaboration, which is the second point of it. But I just really wanted to make a point. Before you reach out to others, make sure you've really defined what it is that you're trying to do. So in terms of collaboration, the second bit, which is really answering your question, first of all, is, first of all, prioritizing your needs. What do you need, to help you achieve your goals or to help you get to where you want to take advantage of the opportunity or solve the problem you want to solve. And divide this also in terms of short term or medium term and the long term. That really helps you to map out then what do you need right now and what do you need in the longer term. The way I like to look at it is in terms of strategic partnership strategy or partnership engagement. My advice is to look at multipliers. So when you're looking for things that you want to, you're looking for partners, even before it's what they want out of you. First of all, it's who you want. So looking at multipliers, what is it that you need? Do you need evidence-based? Do you need a platform to communicate what you're talking about? Do you need champions to talk about the work that you're doing? What it is that you're be clear in terms of what you need. But again, a focus on multipliers, at least in the shorter term, so that you can set yourselves up. But more specifically, in terms of resource mobilization, I want to make a point, first of all. Resource mobilization is not just about financing. Resource mobilization is many things, not just financing. It's advocacy, it's mentorship, it's networking, it's collaborations, it is financing, it's about research, it's champions, ambassadors, who will help you take your work and move it forward. But without going too far, I just want to say every country and every community has its own landscape of potential funders, influential people, and institutions who can help you get there. So first of all, it's about really mapping that out and being clear and really doing the research in terms of and talking to others within your own space, the conservation industry, and even outside of the conservation industry. There's no one size fits all approach. So make sure you keep up with the trends and keep adapting and innovating as well. I think importantly, once you identify who it is you want and what it is that you want, so asking yourself the question of a partner, of a donor, and very often they have this mapped out on their website, what it is that they want. And they usually spell out what they want in their proposals. But I think for you is, first of all, do your values align? Remember, I spoke about goals and values upfront. Are you pursuing sort of the same goals? Remember, I spoke about competencies. So if you're one or two areas where you're doing something really well, that means you've got something to offer them as well. So in terms of their values, then you come into the gate or into the door with a value add for if your values are aligned. Does your project match theirs in terms of current or future interests? Your delivery method and your reputation. I didn't focus on brand, but that was one thing I tried to call out in the first bit, which is a lot about your brand and your program, the interests, some of the things that you're doing. Is it in the interest? Do you have joint interest? Do you have are you following the same policies? Do you have a track record also of partnerships? I think that's important. When we spoke about evidence-based, do you deliver what you say you'll do? I think that's very important in terms of also reporting. in terms of beneficiaries as well, ensuring that it fits with theirs. For example, if you're talking about women empowerment partners, you're more likely to get funding projects with other partners who fund women beneficiaries, for example. Your proposal, against being very clear, what is the need, what it is that you're looking for, you can spell that out. I spoke about multipliers. But yes, I mean, all in all, it should just be, again, the foundation of evidence-based research, being able to offer something as much as what you're getting out of it. So it's not just, an ask, but it's also a give as well. You should come in with a value adding sort of a proposition, as I like to put it. And that was my whole point in the first aspect of defining what it is you really do and being really good at what you do and talking about that. Therefore, you're bringing along, a value addition. And of course, sustainability, I think beyond this is, yes, you're crowding in this partner, but, looking to set up systems that will help empower the beneficiaries, help empower yourself, and crowding in other partners as well to support this in the long run. So I'm going to stop here for now. I know we have other opportunities to chat, but I'll stop here for now. But I just wanted to put the ground rules, first of all, about really defining your own space and then being very clear of who you're reaching out to be clear in terms of what you want and how you add value as well to them in their ask as much as they are adding value to you.
Wow, thank you so much, Lydia. That's really nice. Just getting to know from where you started on focusing on yourself, and now reaching out after building that brand. You now reach out to other people, and also focusing on doing one or two things. That's really important because you can't be a jack of all trades. Yeah. So thank you so much. I know we are having a challenge on the interpretation. So Ezra is trying his best to summarize the discussion on the chat in French. So the French speakers, bear with us for today, but Ezra is doing his best to give you an overview of what is being talked about on the chat. And don't fail to ask any question that you have. You can chat it on, put it on the chat, and we'll get to it. So as we move along to now the second part, and I'll get back to Brian. And Brian, you talked about being an IT professional and moving from IT to be now working with Football Foundation for Africa. And you stated it specifically that it was because of your passion for football that you moved into Football Foundation for Africa. So having this in mind, and we also know that the leaders that we have here are passionate about environment. So the experience that you've had, could you please share with us, the place of passion and innovation in resource mobilization, especially if it's a startup organization like most that our members have?
Thank you, Callisto. And yeah, thank you to the audience as well today. And it's wonderful to have a passionate audience, in this case, in a very important subject that is conservation. Yeah, so as Callisto puts it, passion drove me to set up the Football Foundation for Africa. And at this point, I have to say, passion is just there to give you the start. I believe, like I've just mentioned, we all have a passion, but that's just a starting point. So I am a footballer. I played football quite competitively here in Kenya, and later when I moved abroad, I continued my football career, even as I progressed in information technology. But certain events made me start to think critically about my passion, especially as my playing days my playing days were coming to an end, I really felt I needed to continue doing something within the football space. And that's how I set up the Football Foundation for Africa. As you know, in Africa, yes, football, we are all very passionate about the sport. We are all following football and abroad. But like Lydia mentioned in her presentation, what do you do with that? You know, what problem are you identifying? What need? So for me, my passion for football led me to start thinking critically about the opportunities that the sport was creating in Africa. And I identified that there were very low quality opportunities. Football, as much as everybody was talking about it as big business, as all of us are talking about football being a big business, I looked at it critically in Africa and felt that it was not creating the right opportunities. So as an organization, I set out to improve the quality of football of opportunities, especially for young people within the football space. So that's really the need that I'm trying to solve as an organization that stems from my passion. And just to give you now a bit of background about myself, how I came to set up the organization. It was a process. It's not just one day I woke up and said, I'm going to set up the Football Foundation for Africa. I said when I was stopping to play, I felt I needed to do more. So I started to research around the sport, to research about football, deeply to understand what the game meant, not only for myself, but for the whole world. And that's how I came to discover the wider aspects of the game, you know, the economic implications, the political implications of football, the social implications of football. I really fueled my passion with knowledge about the game. After, as I was acquiring this knowledge, I felt the need to share, especially to my African network, where I felt we did not understand the wider aspects of the game. We do not focus on what football means to us as communities, as society in Africa. Our focus usually is on who is playing who is moving to which team, who is injured, who has won this league, who has won this match. But after discovering the wider aspects of the game, I said, I need to share this with other people. And that's how I started my blog, brianwesala.com. So I used to write on the blog about what I was discovering of the football. And these started to gain, I started to acquire an audience. I started to acquire followers. There were people who became interested in what I was writing. And this was very important when I came now to decide to start the Football Foundation for Africa, because at that point, I already had a following of sorts. So it was just about now moving them, which I'm still doing, to follow the Football Foundation for Africa, because also I realized that it's more than me, it's more than just myself. So again, in Lydia's presentation, she mentions branding. So I did this, though it was unintentional. I didn't think of it as branding then, but now I look back and say, I did a good job at branding myself as being passionate about football and also having the knowledge and the will to change or to improve the situation on the African continent. And I remember when I shared one on my blog and somebody said, I wish we knew this when we were playing. One of the people I played with back then, I wish we knew these kind of things when we were playing, because we were playing out of passion. We were playing maybe thinking we were going to make it professionally, but most of us did not. And a lot of, there was a lot of, we need more of this. So that informed me that, you need to set up something bigger, something that can have a greater impact. And that's why I set up the Football Foundation for Africa. So what is the place of passion in innovation and resource mobilization? I think passion only fuels us. We can also use passion to position ourselves. I positioned myself within the football industry as an authority, I mean, when I write something nowadays, people comment, people identify with, people want to learn more about what I'm doing at the Football Foundation for Africa. So that is positioning myself within the industry using my passion. And passion also keeps us going in the environment. Sometimes the changes we experience in the environment can be very difficult, that like we have experienced in the last 16 months. You know, it's only at this point that sometimes passion gives you that energy to be innovative, to think different. Although I could not continue to organize football tournaments as I was doing before, my passion for football led me to think, how do I continue sharing the knowledge that I was getting with my audience? And that's how I started the Africa Football Business Show last year in July. And this show has gained a lot of traction. It has helped the organization to remain visible, to remain relevant during this period when physical sporting activities had been put to a halt. And yeah, that's where I see passion. But I have to say at the same time that, yeah, passion alone is not enough. You have to couple your passion with knowledge, with a lot of knowledge about what you're doing. You're all very passionate about the environment. You're all very passionate about conservation. But are you continuously building on your knowledge in conservation and the environment? And is there a platform where you're, for example, sharing? Nowadays, we are very fortunate to have social media. We have Twitter, we have Facebook, where you can share the knowledge that you're gaining or through your work, where you can share as well your work. You know, when I connected with Olumide Ido just yesterday or the day before yesterday, it was interesting that he has basically branded himself as Mr. Climate. And already through his Twitter feed, you can tell he is an authority in that space. And if anybody is looking to work with somebody who is in the climate space, you will not be mistaken if you landed on Olumide's Twitter account. And yeah, that's where I see passion play a very important role. And just to summarize or to see, give you a takeaway. For me, I look at it with the 3 Ps I was thinking about this morning. So your passion will lead you to your purpose. And then after you identify your purpose, then you need to position yourself. And you position yourself through research, through preparation, through planning. So the 3 Ps: passion, purpose, positioning. Thank you.
I love the ending. I love the ending. So if you want to take anything away from today's session, remember the 3 Ps. Yeah, so, and that takes me to the 3rd point, the way you talked about branding yourself and also just starting from somewhere and then building a bigger thing from that small thing where you start from. So with that, I'll go to, Mr. Olumide, because you also touched on, branding himself as Mr. Environment. And Mr. Olumide, you also have some background in communications. So my question to you would be, when you go out to look for resources for any grassroots project, it's commonly known that for you to get funds, it comes from someone you've worked with, or someone who knows you, or someone who have heard about you before. So how do these young conservationists leverage advocacy as a tool to build a reputation that will help them to drive resource mobilization for their projects?
Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me this platform again to share this wonderful, and the journey that I've been able to give the platform for everybody to see what every other young people have been doing. And also thank you to the last speaker, Mr. Brian, and our mommy, Lydia, for that wonderful, contribution. For me, resource mobilization was my first stepping stone into the environment space, because for me to get it right, I need to actually know what I'm doing. Like you said, I studied statistics in university, But I'm doing that in different consultancy. I did not leave that somewhere. And I jump into being a social media influencer. Before you know it, my passion also back then when I was in Children Parliament was about environment. And I looked for a way to put these three things together. And for the past 10 to 12 years, right from my Children Parliament, I've been able to see and identify where those resources can be used and how I can lay my hands on how to make use of it. I want to mention three key things here that actually gets me going. Like I said in my first introduction, that never a dull moment. I'm always happy no matter how circumstances looks like. Number one, communications. Number two, management. Number three, relationship. And all these three things I mentioned, the first two speakers have actually explained a lot about it. But let me relate it to my workspace, where I am today, and how I've been able to make use of these three things. Firstly, when I was in the university, I was able to understand that university is a space, is an atmosphere for you not to only study and graduate and be who you want to be, but personal capacity out of academic. And I was very happy because I got myself into an organization that leads me to where I am today, which is called ISEC. But very interesting. When I started the environment, I don't even know what is climate change. But let me tell you, as time goes on, when the conference of party comes and everything, people started talking about climate change. I was like, wow, these are all environmental issues. But the first thing I get to do with myself is, how do I communicate myself, my ideas, my views to people out there so that they can understand my view and my points? Secondly, what kind of group, people can I work with to make sure that I'm not getting it wrong? And that's what I call management. Then the third one, relationship. What kind of funding partners do I need to relate myself with? What kind of friends, family that can support me anytime I need them? Because the first speaker said that it's not about fundraising, it's not about funding. But for me, it's not about funding, it's about relationship. It's about how were you able to build that, your action, and you are consistent on it. That is what is going to actually attract the funding to you. I want to say this, not that I'm happy because where I am today, a lot of funding I've attracted based on recommendation, based on, like I said, on social media. Somebody will just bust into my DM and say, hello, this is what we are doing, we'd like to work with you. So putting that relationship in place will actually get you to the right space. Then another thing I want to add to relationship is packaging, branding. You might be the best proposal writer. You might be the best content development, but how do you get funders, partners to actually understand your call to action? For me, in 2013, when we established a platform called Climate Wednesday, is an online conversation, and I can tell you that since 2019 and 2013 April up to last week Wednesday, we have never missed a Wednesday without talking about a particular issue that's related to environment, health, and education. And this platform has been going on and on. Why are we able to do that? The team. I was able to identify a team that can understand my view, my idea, where I'm going to. And today, even if I'm not there, my organization continue to grow. Then the first one I call about communicating. How do I communicate my identity? Because it's another very key thing for me. My identity is very, very important. So those attitude, those attributes are those things that get me to where I am today. And I will always tell people that though we need one or two people to get us going to understand our vision, but it's very, very key that your mentor, I say it, I have mentors, and I don't have one mentor, like I have them specifically for an idea or a line that I'm touring in my life. And I can tell you and end with this. As I'm an activist, a climate activist, and running community activities, community engagement programs, I would tell you that one of the key things I look out for when it comes to community engagement in my program is to make sure that I buy in the idea of the local people. Because number one, these are the people that are very closer to the grassroots. Example of what is happening in my country today. My country is very peaceful today. Why? Because the local government election is going on. So a lot of people are doing much to make sure that they get the buy-in of the local authorities. Because if you want to actually impact, influence, and drive resources, you need this local entity so that they'll be able to understand your idea and you'll be able to transfer your idea. So end by saying my identity, our identity is very, very key in driving resources and in bringing resource mobilization to yourself. And also, if we continue to see ourselves as spectator, then we will never get those resources we need. So we are no longer a spectator. Both the younger people, the children and women and young people, we are no more a spectator. We have the right opportunity, we have the right space to give ourselves. And if we continue to identify this space, we'll be able to understand that those resources that we are looking for to drive community engagement and those resources we are looking for to build community engagement will be at our own space. So resource mobilization is the driver for organization sustainability. And for you to be sustainable, you need to make sure that you are not after money, but you are after resources that can help you to grow so that your organization will be sustainable. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, Olumide. And that's really powerful. And that presentation just shows how much advocacy can be a really powerful tool for us to be able to attract the resources that we need for our different courses that we are doing. So, and I'll just like to follow that up with a question, because you call yourself Mr. Environment. If you go to Twitter or anywhere else, people will see that as the first thing. And another impressive thing that I saw is that you are the youth focal point in Nigeria for UNDP Small Grants Program. And here we are with young, brilliant leaders that are looking for resources for their grassroots projects. And before this session, we put out just questions for them to, indicate what they would like to know. And most of them, if not all, were asking where exactly. So can you point us to one or two places where they can find resources directly to support their programs?
Okay, thank you very much. Let me split. So let me just quickly explain my role as the youth focal point for the UNDP Small Grant Program. I don't work for UNDP, but I was opportunity to be selected to be on this steering committee. And what I just do basically is to assess every application that comes into the UNDP under the Small Grant Program to see the youth components, whether you are running a project, a minimum of $50,000. If you are running a project and you are looking at a project in a community, or you are running a project and targeting environmental sustainability, and in your content and in your implementation strategy, you don't have the youth components there, then sitting down here, I will scrap your application. The only thing I'm looking for is what are the youth components. Why we are looking for the youth component is because we are not saying the older generations are out of our context, but the bottom line here is when you are working with the younger generation, you are developing their capacity, you are giving them safe space to grow, and you're also using and helping them to see how you derive those proposals, how you come up with those ideas you want to implement. So that is what I do for the UNDP youth focal point. So I look at the components of young people. But let me quickly say, when it comes, I will talk about funding here. I'm also the communication director for African Youth Initiative on Climate Change. And one of the key, I work with like 42 countries, focal points. And one of the key things I want to say about funding is not about the proposal you are writing. One of the things I've learned for the 4 or 5 years now is about when you are consistent in the little you are doing. I remember my first grant was $450, not by individual, but by a big organization. It's called Green Grant Fund. Just $450. From there, I grew to $2,000. Why did that happen? It's not that I don't have a bigger vision to submit a bigger project, but I want to scale. I want to grow. So for me to attract more funding, I need to show how I've been able to manage the little I've gotten. So it actually helps me today, 100,000, 50,000, 20,000, a lot of people are, but you just have to grow stage by stage. By the time you do that, you'll be able to understand that funding is as easy as you are looking at it. Then secondly, that what gets those funding comes is you must not be the only one driving the funding. You can collaborate. You can come together as 3 or 4. It must not be an organization, because when I started, I did not have an organization. I just have an initiative. It was Climate Wednesday, then it grew to International Climate Change Development Initiative. So collaboration will actually help you, because when I remember when I first started, when we got that fund, was 2 of us to manage $450. Today, $450 is just like a peanut to some people. But then when 3 of us, we came together, so guys, we can do this. Let us apply with our initiative in a one proposal. And to be very frank with you, we're able to do that project. And coming back to resource mobilization, the resources we used for that project was now our talent, our capacity that we know that we can put into it, and working with people. But I will tell you, funding, everybody will continue to look for funding everywhere. In Nigeria alone, we have close to 2,000 to 5,000 NGOs, and 5 people are already fighting for a particular donor to give them money every year. So you are just coming into the space, how do you want to drag that space? So for you to be one of the best out of this position, you need to look for a way to scale up. How do you manage small fund? How do you collaborate? What kind of relationship are you building to drive resources? There's Green Grant Fund. They start a little bit, I think they are now $1,000, $2,000 now. I think they're even $5,000. That's a mini grant is $5,000. Can you start looking at, I can connect most of you here to that grant. It's an opportunity for me to connect you guys. I just got like 3 grants for 3 different countries, which is $5,000. We are not telling all our country representatives to come up with a big proposal. No, come up with something that can show that you are impacting the community, or that can show that you are transferring knowledge transfer. So Green Grant Fund is doing that. And if you also look inwardly, there's some companies in our countries that want to chunk out some CSR funding. This organization or these companies, don't approach them with too much funding. Approach them with little, and you grow from there. There's another way that I think I've been using that is working for me. I always love to work with organization staffs to say, okay, we want to build your capacity by joining us in awareness and campaign. Before you know it, you are using their resources to implement your activities in your organization. And you are growing, you are writing your sustainability reports, and everything is growing with you. But before you know it, when a big funding partner approach you, you will have a consistent report to show them we've done this, we've did. So for me, as a beginner, don't target those big shot funders. Target the one that is in your local entity, that is near to your environment. And don't forget friends and family. They're also useful, very, very useful. And when you are approaching funding partners, individual, you might also approach them with telling them that we need your resources, not your money. I can get my mother here, Lydia, to come and talk about youth engagement or youth empowerment. And because of what she said, what I'm doing, she do it for free. But I'm supposed to pay her for doing that. But for her to do that for me, I'm building my organization profile and I'm letting people to understand that without money, I've been able to bring best brain to talk to younger people in my community. So that is one of the best way to drive that funding resources for ourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Olumide. And I'll summarize that like fundraising survival tactics for starters. So thank you so much. And connecting what you just said with the question I have here, and Desmond sends this question to Lydia. So Lydia, lovely presentation. My question goes, how best can we as youth organization break even the aspect of experience? Usually in terms of collaboration, some big, I think big organizations turn to trust organizations that have worked with them for a while, and sometimes it's difficult to break even. So what's your response, Lydia?
I think Olumide has really spoken a lot from first-hand experience. It's not so much about the big organizations. Start with your local organizations, start with local partners. So it's first of all proving yourself. And he said that very clearly. Before he went out, he built his brand. He spoke about what he did. He looked for collaboration with other partners. All of those, foundational aspects that he spoke about, I think are really important. So it's evaluating yourself, evaluating what you want to go for, but also start measured step by step. I think that's important. But just to further answer that question, because I know we're running out of time, there's some key pieces that I also wanted to share that I think are also monumental in terms of doing the work that you're doing on the ground. There's also things called the conservation trust funds and national environmental funds, which are really to support more local funding for national parks and other protected areas. Those are things that you should seek out. Any national park or any protected area, get in touch with them, see what kind of funds they have. Sometimes there's small grants that they give to NGOs and community groups for projects to expand the understanding of conservation and to conserve biodiversity by using resources most sustainably. So I think, Olumide has challenged you, this is something you can do locally. Forget also the big goals. Look at what you have on the ground. But having said that, I think there's some key global moments that are currently ongoing that we really, I would urge you to also look at and see how you can anchor your program within. Therefore, when you're talking to more global programming and aligning with a lot of what's happening with biodiversity or conservation and restoration goals, you are in line with that. For example, the UN Decade for Ecosystem Restoration. So 2021 to 2030 has been declared in 2019 as the UN Decade for Ecosystem Restoration. You can look it up and look at the action items and see how and if you anchor yourselves into that. Of course, this goes without saying the SDGs, which are the broader anchor. But I think these are others more specific to the industry. Of course, there's Communication and Progress 26, COP26, that's taking place in early November 26. Find out about national delegation, who is a part of that, and what are the things they're contributing to. Find out if you can be a youth representative or your representative showcasing what you're doing. So these are things you can get anchored into a global picture. There's also the Convention on Biological Diversity. I think there was a World Biological Diversity Forum that was held a month or two ago. And there were some key actions coming from that. So there are key moments in time as well that you can anchor a lot of the work that you're doing over and above also, the SDGs that will help you better align from a value perspective to some of the more medium term and other partners, even the private sector and others. But I think Olumide really shared a lot. So, what I'm trying to do is I've shared some resources in the chat. I think they're very helpful that you'll be able to look at, but also trying to help you to see, you know, the conservation trust funds, which you can look at, your national parks, but also some of these global events and moments taking place that you can anchor yourself. But I just want to say also, I recognize that we've got 23 out of 54 countries on the African continent that have a representative 100 leaders. What about the other 31 countries? You know, what's the missing link? So I'm challenging you as well, as you're looking within your national context. How can you work with also YMCA, AWF, WWF, World Scouting to also reach others, the 30, okay, my math is failing me, the 31 other countries, you know, reaching across, what's the value add you can bring in those other countries as well? And reaching not just, you know, others. So learn from people like Olomide, keep in touch with him, use him and seek him as a mentor. But I'll stop here, of course, in the interest of time.
Thank you so much, Lydia. And yes, so apologies because we somehow started late, and we just implore you to bear with us because we'll go a little bit over time, but not so much. So we'll get to the part of just you know, closing remarks from the team. But before the closing remarks, I'll want to get back to Brian with a question. Toini asked, would you we would like to know how to approach and engage potential government and private sector for them to understand the vision and creating partnerships. So for you, you've worked with different governments, you've gone with Football Foundation of Africa to different countries, worked with governments and even private sector. So what will be your advice to Toini?
First of all, I must revise that a bit and say, yes, I've had some contact with government, but not very solid. With the private sector as well, and I'll echo Olumide about relationships and starting small. So I would say it's all about networking. You know, at the end of it, it's about people. Lydia mentioned networking at the onset, and when you're networking, one thing I would advise, always look at how you are bringing value to the network. It's not always about taking getting value or who am I going to meet. What do you want to offer? What do you want to give? Or another thing about networking is about connecting people. Sometimes you meet different people at different times. Maybe you cannot do anything with both, but you realize that they have something they are working on that you could connect them. So that's a very important aspect of networking that we sometimes miss, connecting other people when we ourselves do not have any immediate interest in this kind of relationships. So for me, I have used my networks, for example, to get to government officials. And I ask politely, I mean, sometimes it's good to be straightforward. This is what I'm working on. I would like to meet so-and-so because I've seen they're doing this and this. Again, you have to align your values with whoever you want to approach. You know, it's not just about meeting a government official. Are they working on something that you're interested about? I can tell you, for example, one thing I did, I organized a tournament I was organizing a tournament in Botswana. And I wanted to meet the Kenyan ambassador in Botswana. Somebody I'd never met before, somebody I never knew I would meet. But through my network, I realized there was somebody who was working close to him who could connect me to the ambassador. And my thinking was that, yes, he can help me, especially because he's there as a Kenyan representative. I'm from Kenya. But at the same time, I would like to help him in his ambassadorial role. Like there's something I can bring to the table, I can help him to get to the ground. So that was my agenda. I was going there with the Football Foundation for Africa to tell them, here I am, sir, and I can help you to do your grassroots diplomacy.
And he was very welcoming Africa Advisory Board, helping me to network even further. So always.
Okay, so we lost Brian there, but we are coming to the end of today's session. So before we close, I'll just like to take closing remarks from our panelists, and then I'll summarize with some brief notes that I've taken. So I'll go with Lydia first. Your closing remarks.
Well, I already said quite a bit of them before, but it's, I just want to recognize and appreciate the work that you're doing, certainly to put Africa on the map and on the continent. Again, just to reiterate a lot of the remarks that we made. First of all, it's, starting with you and the opportunity and the gap that you're seeing, but also, the importance of starting where you are at. First of all, defining the value add and what you bring and the space and the solution that you're bringing to this space. But then also you really starting within your own community. You'll be amazed about the amount of resources that are available within your own network, your family, your friends, but also your own network, and even your own social media. Use that to your leverage and to your advantage. Your the age group that's really great with this. But in addition to a lot of your social posts, look at also telling the story of what it is that you're doing, and let others tell the story of what it is that you're doing. More importantly, of course, assuming that, you're achieving what it is you set out to do, and you'll see the multiply effect in seeking out people. I really like Olomide and Brian's really very clear steps on how they went about this. So seek them out and seek others out as well in terms of learning what has been done, and be open to learning. I think it's important that, be open to learning and be open to putting one foot at a time, but also being very clear on the goals and where you want to go to move forward. But I think it's also important to move forward together and collaboratively, as we've spoken to. But again, just recognizing the good work that you're doing and the organizations who are supporting you do that.
Thank you so much. I'll turn to Olumide. Your closing remarks.
Okay, thank you so much. For me, I would just say that it takes a very, courage to be where we want to be in life. So I would say that let us take action now. Let's build that success that we want to see. Like Madam Lydia said, tell your story. It's very, very key. It's very important. And another thing that I would say is more action, less talk. Let's start looking at more action. Let us stop the conversation that is not helping us to grow. With that, we'll be able to find solution to how we drive resources and opportunity to our initiative or organization or personally, because you build yourself while you build your organization and you build your community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Olumide. Not sure if Brian is not yet back. So just some brief notes. If there's anything that you can take away from this, of course, we've had a whole hour to discuss this, but I'll just give you a brief of what caught my attention. Of course, not disregarding all that have been said, but identity is really key. So understand what you are doing, understand the objectives, understand the problem you want to address, and the solutions that you are working towards. And secondly, focus on yourself and your brand. You build the brand, that's how you can sell it to others, and then they buy into it and support you in the process. So build your brand. And as you do that, focus on doing one or two things. You can't do so many things at the same time and be successful. So focus on one or two things, and that is how to be an expert in something. And also communicate about your work. Let people know what you're doing. Not that it's just only you who knows. So reach out, communicate, and also looking at impact reporting, the impact that you are creating while doing whatever you are doing. In the process, build on collaboration, reach out to people. And we got that start from your family members, start from your friends. So build collaboration. And like each community have potential partners that you can work with from that grassroots where you are. Don't just start and look at the top class funders and partners. Start from your local community, and start small and build bigger things out of it. That way it's progressive and you appreciate each step that you make every day. And when we talk about passion is not enough. We are all passionate about things, but passion is not enough. Add knowledge into it. Be open to learning every single day. And that takes me to the three things that Brian said: passion, purpose, and positioning. If you look at the three things, that will really work. And then focus on more action. Stop talking, stop procrastinating, do the work. That's what matters. If you don't work, there will be no outcome. So put more action in whatever you are doing. And to close this, resource mobilization is not about funding only, but it's about building relationship. It's about so many other things. So it's not just about the money aspect only. So with that, I'd like to bring Brian is back. So Brian, we were in the closing remarks. If yes, so your closing remarks.
Apologies for the loss of connection. I was just about to finish though my remarks there, or my last comment. Anyway, for the closing remarks, again, I would just like to emphasize the importance of developing your own value and seeing how you can share that with others. How do you bring value to the network? As my colleagues have said, resource mobilization is not about, it's not just about getting funds. Resource is a wide thing. It could be people, it could be a paper somewhere, it could be another network. Let's not limit ourselves to just getting funds, but even more important, see what value you can add, you can bring to the table, and that's very important in your resource mobilization strategy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And all these that we've talked about today builds up to what we started last week. And I hope that while you finalize on your resource mobilization strategy, whatever we've talked about today will build into what you already started doing last week. So thank you so much. And I'll say my best regards to the colleagues who have joined me, the panelists, Lydia, Brian, and Olumide. Thank you so much for taking your time. It's a Saturday, and maybe you are supposed to be resting, taking a rest after a tough week, or just doing whatever thing that you had planned before, but you decided to join us here today, and not just to sit and listen, but also to share your experience, your expertise. Thank you so much for taking that chance with us today. We really appreciate. And also to the participants, thank you for taking your time to join in today. And I hope you've learned one or two things out of this that will help you in the course of the different things that you are doing. Also, thank you to Lloyd and the team for organizing this. I know the moment that we have Lydia, Brian, and Olumide agreeing to be here, they're already part of the team. So if any of the participants would request for further mentorship or guidance in any of the things that we talked about, we'll be reaching out to you any time when that request comes along, so that we continue with the support that we've started. So with that, I can see Ezra. Ezra, you want to say something?
Yes, yeah. Lloyd called me about the use of the interpretation. So he said the recordings, I will work on it and improve it so that the Francophone friends are able to get it later. If I can communicate to them, I think it will be great.
Okay.
Can I speak to them?
Go ahead.
Ok, pour les amis francophones, Lloyd est en train de... Donc, avec le vidéo d'aujourd'hui, là, on a... Donc, après, moi, je vais travailler sur la vidéo là pour traduire pour vous. Donc, on va mettre, bien sûr, sur la plateforme. Vous allez pouvoir avoir l'accès pour bien comprendre ce qu'on a dit aujourd'hui, qu'on a partagé aujourd'hui. Merci.
Merci, Ezra. And once again, apologies to our Francophone friends. You've been in blackout for a better part of the session, but thank you, Ezra, for the amazing work that you've done, trying to, listen and transcribe whatever was being said throughout the session. Thank you so much for that. And that marks the end of today's session. So thank you so much to everyone, and have a nice evening, a good night to Lydia, and the evening to the rest of us, or enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.